Bad girls sleep in graves, darling. That's what my mother told my daughter before locking her in a pit behind the house. My name is Ryan Calloway. I'm a quiet man. I don't scream. I don't lash out. But when I saw what she did, I stopped breathing. It was supposed to be a surprise. I came back 3 days early from my business trip. The house was dark, cold. My daughter's room was empty. Where is she? I asked my wife. She didn't even look up. At your mother's. I drove. Like hell. The moment I pulled into the old driveway, I heard a faint cry, a trembling, muffled sound coming from the backyard. It was 2 a.m, 4 degrees. And there, in that cursed yard I grew up in, was my baby girl standing knee-deep in dirt inside a hole. Barefoot. Her hands purple. She saw me and ran to me like her life depended on it. I picked her up. Held her close. She whispered into my neck. Daddy, don't look in the other pit. But I did. And what I saw was so real, it made my soul leave my body. I should have called the police. I should have screamed. Instead, I stood there, frozen, staring into the second pit. There were toys. Tiny shoes. Torn fabric. And a plastic baby bottle covered in dirt, the one my daughter lost months ago. She wasn't the first. I held her tighter. She was trembling, mumbling half-sentences through chattering teeth. She said I was bad like the others, like Daddy was. My knees buckled. My mother had always been off. Controlling. Hyper-religious. But this? I backed away from the hole, still carrying my daughter. My mother's porch light flicked on. The back door creaked. I didn't wait. I bolted. At the hospital, they documented the bruises, the frostbite, the blood pressure drop. They asked if I wanted to file a report. But my wife, when I returned home, she was sitting in the kitchen, sipping wine. Her phone lit up with a message. She'll forget. She always does. I asked her, how long have you known? She smiled without turning. Ryan, you really think this was the first time? My hands were shaking again. But this time it wasn't from shock. This time it was rage. I stared at her, that woman I once trusted with my child. How long have you known Emily? I asked again, my voice low. She finally turned to face me. Your mother's sick, but you always protect her. I just wanted her to handle discipline. Discipline? She left our daughter in a pit. In winter. I couldn't hear anything except the buzzing in my ears. I walked into our daughter's room, packed her favorite plush toy, her blanket, and the tiny boots she called her adventure shoes. Emily followed me. Where are you going? I didn't answer. I simply said, you'll hear from my lawyer. But this wasn't going to be just a custody battle. I knew what I saw in that pit. And I needed answers. I needed truth. I called a friend at the police department. Quietly, I gave him the address, told him what I'd found, and asked him to check if there were any old missing child reports that could match. The silence on the other end said enough. Ryan, he finally said, don't go back there alone. I'm sending a team. And be ready. There's more than one case in that area. My stomach turned. My mother was hiding something darker than I'd ever imagined. The officers arrived just after dawn. My daughter slept in my arms, unaware. I hadn't slept. I handed them the address, the photos I'd taken of the second pit, and the voice recording of what my daughter said. One of them, Officer Delgado, went pale when he looked at the photo. This looks recent, he muttered. We've had missing persons cases, but no one's ever checked that backyard. They went in quietly. No sirens. No warnings. I waited across the street in my car, clutching my daughter's coat. An hour later, Delgado called me over. There were bones in the second pit. I couldn't breathe. Too early to say if they're human, he added, but it's not animal remains. We've called forensics. He looked at me hard. You sure you didn't know what was going on? I shook my head. I swear. I never thought she was capable of this. She was strict, cold. But murder? Delgado studied my eyes. We'll know more soon. For now, don't let your daughter out of sight. I nodded, heart pounding. I thought it was over when I took my daughter home. But that night, my phone lit up with a message. A blocked number. One sentence. You dug up the wrong grave. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the text on my phone, reading it over and over again. You dug up the wrong grave. I locked every door. Pulled my daughter's mattress into my room. Slept beside her, one eye on the hallway. The next morning, I returned to the station. Delgado looked up as I walked in. I need to see the remains again. He frowned. They're at forensics. We should get results in a few days. Something's wrong, I whispered. My daughter said, don't look into the other pit. That means she knew about both. I only found one. He sat up straighter. There were 2 pits? I nodded. I think there's still something buried out there. He called in backup. We drove back to the grandmother's house. This time they brought dogs. While they combed the backyard, I kept my distance. But one officer started waving. They'd found disturbed earth under a pile of logs. Within an hour, the dogs started barking. Then came the shovel. Then the scream. Delgado turned to me. His face was gray. It's a small box. Taped shut. Smells like chemicals. A forensics tech pried it open, and everyone stepped back. Inside were 6 Polaroids of children. One of them was mine. My legs gave out. I sat on the edge of the porch, holding my daughter's photo like it was made of glass. Delgado crouched beside me. She's safe now, he said quietly. But I could barely hear him over the screaming in my head. Who had taken those photos? Why was my daughter in one of them? What else had that woman done? They took the box into evidence. The forensics team was already analyzing fingerprints. But I didn't wait. I went straight to her. She was in custody by then, sitting calmly in a gray room, hands folded like a prayer. I looked through the glass. She smiled when she saw me. Like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't buried my child alive in the cold. Like she hadn't laughed when the dogs barked. The officer beside me shook his head. She's not talking. Says she was protecting the girl from the devil's whispers. Rambling nonsense. I watched her for a full minute. Then I said, "Get her out of that room. I need her alone. With me." The officer blinked. "That's not protocol." I looked him dead in the eye. "I'm not here for protocol." I opened the door. She whispered, "You still don't know what she is, do you?" I stepped into the room and the door clicked shut behind me. She looked up at me with that same calm, almost motherly smile. "You don't know what she is," she repeated, voice soft. I sat across from her, fists clenched, every breath dragging fire through my chest. "What did you do to my daughter?" I asked. She tilted her head. "I saved her. From the voices. From your bloodline." I slammed my hands on the table. "You buried her alive." She didn't flinch. "Because she hears him. Just like her father did. Before you forgot." "What are you talking about?" I'd had enough. I stood ready to walk out. But then she said something that stopped me cold. "Check the pit again. The second one." He's still whispering. I didn't wait. I rushed back to the property with Delgado and 2 officers. The pit was taped off, but we went down. This time we dug deeper beneath the frost. And we found bones. Adult bones. Bound. Clenched in the dirt. Next to it, a rusted dog tag. Delgado picked it up and wiped the surface. My name. The date of birth matched mine. But the date of death. That wasn't mine. It was today's date. And that's when my phone buzzed. It was my daughter. Screaming. I answered on the first ring. "Daddy, please help me." "Grandma locked me outside again. She said the whispering man wants me too." The call dropped. We sped through the icy night like demons. Delgado's partner called backup. I don't even remember parking. Just the slamming door, the crunch of boots against snow, and the silhouette of my daughter, barefoot in her nightgown, standing in the snow near the pits. I ran to her. But she wasn't looking at me. She was staring past me. At the workshop. Smoke curled from the side window. A figure moved inside. Delgado raised his gun. We burst through the rotted wooden door. And there she was, my mother. Sitting in my old chair, smiling, whispering to someone in the dark. "You came home," she said to the shadows. "He's here." I walked closer, heart pounding. That's when I saw the notebook in her lap. Names. Dates. Drawings. My childhood. All the times I thought I was sick. Hallucinating. She had written it all. Studied it. Because it wasn't her madness. It was mine. And I passed it to my daughter. She looked up at me one last time, whispering. We kept the truth buried.